John Fourr of Roleplaying Tips sent out a fantastic article, and this is something that I deal with a lot, and I'm sure it's something you deal with a lot, and it's the idea of how do you hide clues in room descriptions that don't just immediately give away that you're hiding something, right? So if there's a hidden door below a bed, if we as the narrators even mention the bed, they're just gonna immediately go over there and look at it, right? This is one of the reasons that I like play by post, because I can put a lot more description in and about a room and kind of flood the market, flood the description with a lot of stuff so that it kind of dilutes that a little bit. And that's one of the points that he makes as well, is simply adding more details is one way to sort of obfuscate and hide that you're trying to let them know something. One of the hardest parts about RPGs and tabletop gaming is that it's not a movie, right? So whenever we're watching these awesome cinematic scenes and they just notice that, oh, this thing is over top of my head, I can grab that and use it to hit the guy currently attacking me. If we don't describe that environment to our players, then they have no idea that thing is there. At the same token, or by the same token, whenever you're trying to do research and like looking around the room and stuff like that, we want to give them enough flavor that doesn't just immediately give them a big red arrow pointing, go look over here at this thing because there's something interesting there. And that is a hard thing to balance. If you've never heard John Fourr, he's got roleplayingtips.com. He sends out fantastic emails that have great things like this, and I'm especially excited that he had this one because he mentioned one of all of our favorite websites, and that is Justin Alexander's The Alexandrian. And he talks about in that thing the 3-clue rule. I've got a link to that article in the description down below. This is a fantastic article. It's kind of like, you know, one of the premier elements to think about of the 3-clue rule, because you kind of pepper those things in. You're giving them that breadcrumb trail, and you're kind of leading them down so that you're not giving them so much information, and you're just kind of sprinkling so that you're getting all of the flavor you want and not so much information that you're just leading by the nose or whatever. So the other idea is, on top of the 3-clue rule, is stacking your clues. So this kind of transitions your clues into more of like a puzzle. So instead of just like yelling louder, you're just adding on these extra pieces. So if you first start describing that bed, you're going to describe the whole room. You're going to talk about maybe there's a desk in there, maybe there's papers on it, maybe there's a feather quill that's in the ink jar. Then there's the bed. Then you talk about the wardrobe. You talk about maybe describing that wardrobe. There's a window that's offering a view to the outside. You're peppering all that in. The only thing that they're going to wind up caring about is the trapdoor under the bed. But when you add in that extra amount of description, then it doesn't give them that immediate red arrow pointing. Then if you're stacking those clues, you're talking about a little bit more about the area. So as they shift their focus, be ready to give them descriptions about that. Not just they inspect the wardrobe, there's nothing there and exciting, right? You want to kind of layer those clues. You want to stack those clues. And in this instance, since we're talking about the bed, since that's what John Fourr was talking about, so then you can start talking about the bed is crisply made. Everything goes almost all the way down to the floor. The pillows have bright white cases, sharp creases. And then you talk about there's muddy footprints on the floor. Well, then you think, the bed is big enough for 2 people. It's really sturdy. However, it's not perfectly lined up to the wall. So instead of just starting out with that, if you just immediately said, hey, the bed's slightly askew, then again, the players are going to immediately run over there. And so I always try, I don't think my players have actually caught on to this yet, but normally I try, whatever the most interesting thing is, I try to sandwich it, kind of the layer concept, right? I try to sandwich it. So I try to make sure that the first thing I mention is not the most important piece, is not the thing that I want them to immediately gravitate towards. I normally try to do 3 things. Again, 3-clue rule, you're going to pepper those in. But then the first thing is not the most important. The second one probably is. And then the third thing is just that bookend, that sandwich, so that it's not just one thing. Because if you only mention the bed, they're going to run straight to it. And so again, the idea of layering these things, and then you just give them a little bit more description as they get closer. And then it feels a lot more exciting. It's more earned. It's more mysterious that they really did use their skills as they're making their skill checks. And again, if somebody rolls poorly, then you maybe don't give them as much information, right? It takes them a little bit longer longer. The idea of just give them a little more information, just kind of draw out those room descriptions. Again, I love play-by-post. I talk about play-by-post all the time. So in the writing, it's even easy for me because I'll pre-write a lot of these room descriptions. Well, you could absolutely do that too. If you're running a live action game, you could pre-write the room description because there's not going to be a lot that's going to change in that room description from whenever you start the adventure to whenever they finally get there. That'll give you the time to think. You're not having to make it up on the fly. Now, obviously, if things change in between there, maybe a goblin ran in there and screwed something up before, well, that's easy if you've already got the room description. So starting from there and just kind of layering on all those extra pieces of information. So really quick video today, just talking about how to pepper in that information, how not to just immediately give away the goose and not have that big red arrow pointing. Just try to add in extra information because that dilutes overall what you're giving them. Layer the pieces so that when you walk in, you give them kind of a broad overview, which is what we do as an actual person anyway, right? You walk into a room, you don't immediately laser focus on one thing in the room. No, you take an overview and then you start to notice what's wrong, what's different, what stands out here. Think about that in terms of your exact players. The characters walk into the room, they see an overview. When they first walk into that room, they're not going to notice that that bed is slightly askew, right? That's not so obvious that it's going to pop out. And then also, I love to throw in red herrings, and this is something that you should probably do as well. That's the picture is slightly askew. Point that out immediately. So then they latch onto, oh, there's something wrong with that. And then there's nothing there. So that's kind of fun. And then it just throws them off. It gives them that little bit of extra flavor. Why is the picture askew, right? And pre-writing these things, again, I love doing that. I love the writing aspect. I hope you'll check out, I did another video about hybrid games, because if you love your live action game, you love being around the table, I don't want to take that away from you, but I truly believe if you add on the component of play-by-post, you will all love the extra depth that you can go into. If you haven't heard of John Fourr, run over and check out roleplayingtips.com. He sends out a monthly, or not monthly, he sends out an email at a regular basis, and then he's got a YouTube channel. Mostly he talks about, he has a software called Campaign Logger, so he gives some great stuff. Go over and check him out. If you haven't heard of the Alexandrian.net, I have a link to the 3-clue rule post down below, but obviously Justin Alexander is huge in our sectors, especially when it comes to Tolis. So if you haven't heard of them, go check both of those guys out, and until next time, stay out of the shadow of the spire.